I'm sure you're all familiar with writing papers, so I'm going to be giving you a review of what you already do. And did not tell you that kind of papers that I will be writing, they should be very precise and clear. And people who read that in the audience, they need to be able to follow them easily. Each journal, interestingly, has a set of instructions which you have to go through before you write a manuscript for that specific journal, because there could be minor variations, and you might do a lot of hard work creating a manuscript, and then you find that, well, it doesn't meet the requirements of the specific journal where you want to submit that paper. Generally, it includes a title, abstract, introduction, material methods, results, discussion, conclusions, acknowledgements, and so on and so forth. So these are the general common format for practically all the original manuscript that you write. Now, when you're looking at the title, I think I have found in my formative years that the most difficult task was to create a title for what I want to say. And I realized over the years that this is what, as a reader for the last 4 decades of scientific papers, what fancies or what catches my attention is the title of the paper. So not only the title has to be precise within the given limits of the characters of the words, it also needs to be create adequate curiosity for the reader to at least look at the abstract which follows next. I'm just giving you some of the examples from my own papers to avoid any conflicts, of highlighting some of the papers which got rejected, or these are highly cited papers actually from some of the most scientific journals in the area of technology. So you can see how it's a self-explanatory. So when you read, then you already know as a reader that, well, this drug is an adjunct to the management. I am not given any conclusion here. I have not said that you must use. I am not saying this is a miracle drug. I have just said that. Likewise, when we are saying the second title, we are saying that, well, this disease may present like this. So enough to raise your curiosity levels and go to the next listing. It should not declare, it should not be conclusive, it should not say that this is recommended or this is what is confirmed. There's nothing like confirmation, a confirmatory test, or conclusive evidence that we should say in your title. The next step when you are reading an article, if the title is catchy enough, is the abstract. And there, I think most of us, maybe a majority of us, would read only the abstracts. So these abstracts, and we have by and large access to only abstracts. We don't have access to the full-length articles in most of the non-online journals, the print journals, and we are satisfied with only reading the abstracts. So in the current age and era, I think it's utmost important that your abstract be complete in all respects, giving you what was missing, and what you found and what it means. And not only this, the reviewers who are going to review your article would also be provided only with the abstract, which is a structured abstract. And looking at that, they might not feel the need to go through the entire article, and they say, well, this is nonsense and stuff, and they may send it back. So it has to. You have to spend the maximum time on structuring your abstract. Now, this is some of these, usual formats. It might vary a little with the journal, like purpose, design, participant methods, or it could be another journal. It might say only the methods, results, and conclusions. Now, here I would like to, and I underestimated the power of these keywords, and I'd like to share just a small anecdote. I've been working for a lot of years on the ocular tuberculosis, and invited a scientist a couple of months ago at my institute, and and he was searching for my papers. He was looking for a keyword, extrapulmonary tuberculosis. In all the last 20-25 years, I have never used extrapulmonary tuberculosis as a keyword in any of my 25 papers. And he says, look, you have no paper. And when I asked him to look around for my name, and then he said, well, when I search for your name, all the papers come. But when I search for extrapulmonary tuberculosis, none of the papers shows up. How is it? You know, this is a very, very important lesson for me, and that's why I'm sharing with you that when you choose your keywords, be very, very careful and use those keywords. So instead of the book, I would be focusing more on the indexing of the book, and see what kind of words are used as such queries, when you are looking for a specific article. Because if your article is not read by people who are interested to read that, it has lost its meaning. As a reviewer, when I'm looking at an article, I might pass the abstract, I might pass the title, but when it comes to the introduction, and I find it complicated, and I find the authors have spent a whole lot of detailed review of literature, I get put out. What the fellow is trying to say, he has to very, very simple, in a diffuse manner, just introduce the subject, and then come very quickly to specifics, that these are some of the stuff which is missing in literature, this is what I want to explore, and this is what we want to make our comments on, rather than review the whole lot of literature that, well, there are 10 cases and I want to add another 5 cases. I mean, there is a need for any linguistic introduction to a research article. This is what I told you here. And you must highlight, what ultimately you are going to show. From a reader perspective, it's very important that he knows by the end of those 2 paragraphs that what am I going to look in this article? What am I in for? Why should I spend another 40 minutes going through that article? So you must raise that question right here and answer that question. The objectives, as I said, should be very, very clear. And of course, I'm sure all of us are familiar with that we must describe in ample detail the methods used, the design of the study, the subjects of the study, so that anywhere in the world they are able to reproduce. If your methodology is weak, if it's not clear, if your design is improper, the paper will get rejected or will come with a lot of comments. And you might have spent a year writing the paper, and it comes back because your design methodology was wrong, or your statistical methodology was inappropriate, or you chose absolutely unacceptable groups or treatment groups and stuff like that. I mean, you will have difficulty. And of course, some of these things need to be clearly mentioned about the ethics Institute Review Board or committee approvals. If you use animals, then you have to talk about the animal, they were followed certain rules. Your methods also must say the inclusion and exclusion criteria. These days, the journals are becoming very, very picky about, who were excluded. Why there was such a dropout rate? You're talking of 100 patients. You dropped out of your study 900 patients. They want to know why those 900 patients were dropped out of your study and why you chose to have that selective 100 patients were included in there. And of course, how you measure those outcomes. And statistical methods said that. Now, very often, what I find when I'm reviewing these papers, that the authors tend to justify why they chose a particular method in the method section. No. In the method section, we need to describe the method, but when we start discussing that, the results, then we need to spend some time on discussing a particular methodology we used to reach that outcome measure. So that needs to come into the discussion section and not in the methodology. In the method, you need to just specify, this is what I used in my methods, and that's good enough. And of course, the results again, and you need to be very, very worrisome about the dropouts, and people are looking very, very seriously at the dropout rates in the study. Now, what's important here is that you don't need to be repetitive, and this is where the problem is. First you write very elaborate results and then you put the same data in a table. You know, you need to provide perhaps only very, very few details in the text and put most of those facts and figures in the tabulated form. So that, and when you are giving a title to the table, it must be complete without having to refer to the manuscript text. You should be able to see that, like what it says here, demographic and baseline and clinical characteristics. So anybody doesn't need to refer to the main text of the paper. Just the table itself, the legend is so clear that what you're seeing here is actually the outcome of that, what you're reporting. Likewise, the outcomes, particularly the visual outcomes and any other outcomes, you need to put them in a table manner. This is far more understandable and appreciable when you have tabulated data rather than put them in the main text of the. Then you need to report. You can't be selective that, well, I'll report only the significant outcomes. Those which are non-significant also need to be put in these tables to make any meaningful discussion. And of course, you need to describe case examples wherever appropriate, if you're showing some of this imaging and some of those, specific complications you want to show, observations you want to show. And while preparing the tables, each table again should have, if you're using any acronyms or abbreviations, each table have to have its own. At the bottom of the table, at the footnotes, you must give the expanded form. Not that, you're given in table 1 and you don't need to give it table 2. I think each table needs to be complete in all respects. The figures need appropriate annotations. Again, the legends of the figures have to be self-sufficient. You don't have to refer to the text of the paper. When you're inserting figures in your paper, they must be sufficiently labeled. And if you can provide some of these graphs, they are the very good way of presenting your outcomes. Now, when we are talking the discussion, I think we get carried away by repeating what people have otherwise done. What we need to highlight here is a little bit about the method, why you chose that particular method. Then you need to talk about what you found and what it means actually in terms of new outcomes that you discovered during the course of your study and how it can be applied. You also need to discuss the limitations of your study. In what way is your study limited? And there could be several factors for those. Now, something which we are given to using very loud claims and tall claims. I think we need to avoid those tall claims that I have proven forever that this is so and so. No, we found, we sport, we speculate. Over speculation should be avoided. It could not be all the time speculative. You can't be hypothesizing all the time in discussion. It must remain restricted to what you find. And of course, the conclusions again are very, very important part. This is a concluding paragraph where you want to say again what you really, how this can be applicable. And acknowledgements, the bibliography, and I think one of the papers that I was reviewing a couple of months ago, each reference of the 40 or 50 odd references that were given was wrong. I could not locate, I had to make corrections, and when I sent my review, the editor got so happy that I really looked at all the references because they were all wrongly cited. They were not even there. Okay, and I had to actually do that exercise for the authors. So simple rules, the target journal, you must know where you want to submit your paper. By and large, with the Indian authors, the problem is the use of, we never learned the correct use of language, correct use of particles, grammar, or syntax. There are major issues where we put off the reviewer from giving you a positive review. And of course, we discussed in the sessions before the plagiarism. Thank you so much for your kind attention.